We tatted on you. They not dead. I wouldn't tat nobody on me that's not dead. 2 days after that, these boys are dead.
Well, it just which one were you close with?
Both of them. Every last one of them. Dead and gone. I already know what y'all here for.
Well, it just which one were you close with?
Both of them. Every last one of them.
Did you grow up with them?
Every last one of them.
YNW Melly's whole case just spun in a wild new direction after a close homie leaked that late-night footage, flipping the storyline like nobody expected. This drop didn't just spark questions. It sent the internet into full meltdown mode. And this new clip might rewrite everything people thought they knew about that night. These leaked videos came out in November 2025, showing Jacoby Mills, a dude who was actually there. And the details he revealed hit way harder than anything the streets ever whispered. This isn't shaky phone footage or random hearsay. It's straight up interrogation tape, raw and unfiltered, and it's got everybody buzzing like crazy. What makes this footage so wild is that Mills wasn't some outsider repeating what he heard. He was in the red car trailing the Jeep where the murders allegedly went down, watching the whole night unfold. This ain't secondhand talk. This is a voice from inside the circle. Someone who knew every face, every move, every vibe that night. To get why this leak is shaking social media so hard, you gotta understand the root of this case that's had people locked in for over 6 years. Everything goes back to October 26, 2018, when two rising Florida rappers, Anthony YNW Sack Chaser Williams and Christopher YNW Juvie Thomas Jr., were found shot inside a Jeep Cherokee at Memorial Hospital in Miramar. The moment their names hit the news, the whole music scene stopped. YNW Melly, real name Jamel Demons, wasn't some random dude floating around them. He was family, part of the same YNW crew building their movement from scratch, trying to rise out of Florida with something powerful. These weren't rivals beefing in the shadows. These were brothers who moved together and trusted each other through everything. The first story police heard was that Cortland YNW Bortland Henry drove the two victims to the hospital after a supposed random drive-by ambush. On the surface, it looked like another heartbreaking moment of young artists getting caught in street chaos. Nothing more. But now, with this new footage dropping, people are looking at that night with fresh eyes, and the questions just keep getting louder. The situation looked like the kind of tragedy our communities see way too often. But once investigators started digging, the whole story collapsed instantly, like a stack of cards caught in a hurricane. The evidence wasn't just shaky. It completely flipped the original claim on its head. Forensics showed the bullets didn't come from outside the Jeep like a drive-by would suggest. The autopsy revealed both victims were shot from inside the vehicle. Even wilder, the bullet paths lined up with the exact seat where Melly was said to be sitting. That detail alone had the streets buzzing because it changed everything in this case. The prosecution's version goes like this. At around 1 a.m. on October 26, 2018, a group of 8 adults pulled up to New Era Recording Studio in Fort Lauderdale to work on music. Pretty standard. Studios stay busy with artists grinding through the night, hoping to drop something fire. But according to the leaked footage, the energy inside that room felt off from the moment they walked in. Mills said everybody was moving strange, acting nothing like their usual selves. Sack Chaser was being super aggressive, even slapping people for nodding off during the session. The vibe was tense, and the place felt more stressful than creative. By 3:19 a.m., nobody was locked in on the music anymore, so they shut everything down and dipped out. This is where the timeline gets razor sharp. They split into 2 rides. 4 adults got into a red Mitsubishi SUV. Trivian Glass, Dontavia Withers, Jacoby Mills, and Adrian Davis. The other 4 loaded into a gray Jeep Cherokee. Cortland Henry up front driving, Anthony Williams in the passenger seat, Christopher Thomas in the back, and Jamel YNW Melly Demons in the rear driver's side seat. Surveillance cameras caught both cars heading the same direction. First I-95 south to 595, then across 595 to I-75 south, and finally toward Miramar Parkway. Everything looked calm from the outside, just 2 cars full of tired artists heading home after a long night. But somewhere along that route, the whole night took a dark turn that nobody saw coming. At 184th Avenue, the red Mitsubishi kept rolling south and got picked up on surveillance as it passed through the guard gate at Sunset Lakes around 3:50 a.m. The same gated community where most of the crew stayed. But the gray Jeep? It never appeared on that footage at all, which instantly raised eyebrows. Later, cell phone data showed the Jeep had gone north instead, and that twist is where things turned straight up eerie. The Jeep headed north on 181st, cut onto Pines Boulevard, and drove west toward the edge of the Everglades, a pitch-black, empty stretch where nobody would be around to witness anything. After that, the vehicle moved south on US 27 and turned left onto Pembroke Road, a road that dead ends at a trash facility. According to the cell phone tracking, this lonely spot at 4:02 a.m. is where the murders were said to have happened. Now here's where the case hits a whole different level of wild. When investigators searched the entire section of Miramar Parkway, the place where the supposed drive-by attack happened, they found absolutely nothing. No shell casings, no broken glass, no bullet holes, no skid marks, nothing at all that backed the claim of a drive-by. The scene was spotless. Meanwhile, the medical examiner dropped a detail that stunned everyone. When the drive-by was allegedly staged at 4:02 a.m., both victims were already gone. The extra gunshot wounds that looked like they came from outside the car happened after they had passed, meaning someone fired into the Jeep only to make it look like a random street ambush. That detail shook everybody because it changed the entire tone of the case. According to the prosecution, Melly and Bortland didn't just take their friends' lives. They tried to stage a whole movie-style cover-up, driving around with two bodies in the car before unloading shots into the Jeep from the outside to fake a drive-by. That's some cold, calculated planning, not just a heated argument or quick tempers flaring. But prosecutors kept stacking more claims. They presented Instagram DMs where someone asked Melly about the deaths, and he allegedly responded, "I did that." Shh. They also brought up ties linking him to the G-Shine Blood set, saying that just 2 days before the incident, he was learning the loyalty oath for that crew. That detail had people online losing their minds. The first trial in July 2023 ended with a mistrial after the jury couldn't agree on a verdict, and the retrial has been pushed back over and over. It's now set for January 2027. Melly has been behind bars for more than 6 years with no conviction, and his co-defendant Bortland took a plea deal in October 2025 for accessory charges. And this is why the leaked interrogation videos hit so hard. Jacoby Mills, also known as Jacoby Mills or Cortez Teasy, is described as Bortland's blood cousin and was one of the people riding in the red car that night. That puts him close enough to know exactly how the night unfolded, but far enough removed that he lived to actually talk about it. This leak has everyone watching closer than ever. These videos were first recorded in January 2019, just months after the murders, long before most of the details ever hit the public. That timing matters a lot because it shows Mills was speaking on things nobody outside the investigation even knew yet, which gives his statements a whole different level of weight. But the fact that this footage is only now coming out in November 2025, right when the retrial is being lined up, has everybody questioning the motive behind the leak. Was this dropped on purpose to sway public opinion? Is it tied to the civil lawsuit still in motion? Or did it surface now because it finally moved through the discovery process? The timing alone has people arguing nonstop. In the hip-hop world, the reaction has been explosive. Big voices like DJ Academics and countless online users have jumped into the conversation, each pushing their own take on what these revelations mean. The community is split in two. Some see this as the decisive evidence that confirms Melly's guilt, while others say Mills is breaking the code for personal gain. The tension is loud. What complicates everything even more is that Mills denies being a snitch multiple times during the interrogation, saying he's only trying to help his friends. But the details he drops are so sharp and so damaging that it's hard to understand how any of this benefits anyone except the prosecution. The man spilled a level of info that shook the whole culture. Mills didn't just talk. He unloaded one of the biggest confessions hip-hop has ever witnessed. And once the footage started circulating, people couldn't believe how deep he went. If part one of this saga felt intense, this section hits even harder because now we're diving into what Mills actually said in that interrogation room, and the vibe is heavy from the very first line. He basically laid out a full blueprint of what allegedly went down that night, with details so specific they give you chills just hearing them. Mills starts by breaking down the studio session minute by minute, and you can instantly tell the night had a strange energy hanging over it. He said they reached New Era recording studio around midnight, but instead of that usual hunger and focus, everyone looked drained and half asleep. Studio time isn't cheap. You don't waste it unless something serious is weighing on the room. And according to Mills, the whole setup that night felt off in a way nobody could ignore. Then his story gets even more intense. Mills describes Sack Chaser as acting super aggressive and controlling, even slapping people who nodded off during the session. And anyone who understands street dynamics knows that when someone starts disrespecting the whole squad in front of everybody, that kind of tension doesn't just disappear. It usually builds into something major. Mills describes Sack Chaser as unpredictable and known for getting violent, which lines up with other stories saying the crew had real tension building over money and control. He even mentions Kobe pulled, hinting at moves Sack Chaser made that kept the pressure boiling inside the group. This leads straight into a rumor that's floated around the streets for years but never had solid confirmation: the money beef that reportedly pushed everything toward chaos. According to different voices in the leaked audio, major arguments broke out over a record deal worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and Sack Chaser supposedly believed he was the CEO of YNW, claiming he deserved half of whatever Melly earned. That belief alone could spark serious conflict. Then Mills gives crucial details about the seating inside the Jeep that night, details that break down the setup piece by piece. He says Bortland was driving, Sack Chaser rode shotgun, Melly sat right behind Bortland, and Juvie was behind Sack Chaser. Meanwhile, Mills was in the red car with Tay driving, Fetty up front, and Adrian Davis in the back. This layout matters because it lines up with the forensic evidence investigators later used. But here's the detail that sends chills through anyone listening. Mills claims he originally tried to get into the Jeep but felt divinely pushed away from it. Whether you call that intuition or something spiritual, it shows he sensed something was dangerously off with the group in that ride. That kind of instinct speaks loud in street life. Mills also says Juvie grabbed weapons from the studio before they dipped, and that Melly carried a brown satchel that supposedly held a gun. These details match the prosecution's theory that what happened later wasn't random or sudden. They believe it was planned out long before the cars hit the road. Then the story gets even more intense. Mills explains that once everyone reached the house in Sunset Lakes, they waited outside for about 30 minutes because nobody had the keys. Most of the crew eventually went inside and passed out, but at around 4 a.m. Mills got a chilling phone call from his mother saying someone contacted her and threatened, "Y'all all dead." That kind of message hitting a parent in the middle of the night is serious. It shows whatever was going on had reached a level way beyond simple disagreements over money or music. After that call, Mills noticed something else. Multiple missed calls from Melly, plus 17 calls to Drew, the crew's videographer. When someone blows your phone up that much at that hour, you know something major just went down. But the part that hits the hardest comes next. Mills says Melly FaceTimed him after everything happened, and he claims Melly was straight acting, fake crying with no tears, putting on a performance to sell the idea that he was broken-hearted over what happened to his friends. According to Mills, the whole emotional display looked staged, and that detail has become one of the most controversial pieces of his entire testimony. In the streets, being able to flip emotions on and off like a switch is something people associate with dangerous folks, not average crew members. So when Mills claims Melly was able to act heartbroken right after the violence, he's painting a picture of someone who could harm the people closest to him and then immediately step into a performance to hide it. That's a level of emotional control that sounds intense. Mills also adds details about seeing Melly at Fredo Bang's house afterward, saying Melly had changed into a tank top and gym shorts, a move that could suggest he switched clothes to avoid leaving behind anything that tied him to what happened. Other witnesses from the trial backed up the detail about clothes being changed, which gives this part of Mills's story extra weight. But things get even wilder when Mills talks about the next morning. He says the crew went searching through nearby woods and actually found a .40 caliber handgun covered in blood. Mills claims he even held the gun before a manager grabbed it from him. He also says they were searching for a second weapon, something described as a Tech, likely a Tech 9, but they never located it. Hearing this part is intense because the prosecution has always said the murder weapon was never recovered, yet Mills suggests the crew found and got rid of it themselves, which would explain why officers couldn't track anything down. All through his account, Mills keeps saying Bortland wasn't involved in the violence. He describes Bortland as someone who wasn't built for that type of act and wouldn't have carried out something that serious. That could explain why Bortland later accepted a plea for accessory charges rather than getting hit with the same accusations as Melly. But Mills doesn't stop at describing events. He starts diving into why he thinks everything happened, and that's where the controversy really starts heating up. He says the whole situation felt like a setup and even compares it to other well-known cases in the industry. The moment he starts bringing up NBA YoungBoy, the story jumps into a whole different territory. Mills wonders how YoungBoy supposedly knew so much about what went down, pointing to social media posts and a rumored remix that he said included details only insiders would know. But here's the thing. Deep searches haven't turned up any evidence of this remix, and investigators haven't found any connection between YoungBoy and the case. Still, the fact Mills even mentioned him is striking because there were reports of past street tension between their circles. Situations like that can escalate fast and lead to all kinds of fallout. This part of the story shows just how tangled and unpredictable things had become around the crew, with rumors, assumptions, and old beefs mixing together into something extremely volatile. Whether YoungBoy had anything to do with the situation or not, the fact that his name even gets pulled into the conversation shows exactly how tangled hip-hop politics can get. Mills's statements hit different because many of the details he shared back in 2019 weren't public at the time. Yet years later, those same details ended up being confirmed. That's what makes people listen to him so closely. One example is huge. Mills said Juvie's thumb was shot off, something nobody outside the investigation knew until attorney John Phillips released autopsy photos in 2025. He also described the exact spot where Melly got picked up by Fredo Bang, a detail that later matched cell phone records revealed during the trial. When someone's early statements keep lining up with evidence from years later, people start taking them seriously. But throughout the entire interrogation, Mills keeps saying he's not snitching. He claims he's trying to help his friends and keep his family safe. At one point, he even says he's scared that speaking with investigators might put his loved ones in danger. That fear shows how heavy the situation felt from his perspective. Once these leaks hit the internet, social media went absolutely wild. Hip-hop commentators like DJ Academics broke down the footage, while fans across Reddit, Twitter, and YouTube argued non-stop about whether Mills should be seen as a credible witness or someone trying to protect himself by shifting blame. The community hasn't been this divided in a long time. What makes this even more interesting is how the leaks highlight deeper issues about loyalty and betrayal in hip-hop and street culture. There's an unspoken rule in those worlds. You don't cooperate with law enforcement no matter what. But when your friends lose their lives and you start believing someone else in your circle might have been responsible, that line gets blurred instantly. And in the final part of this saga, everything turns toward the future. What this means for Melly's upcoming trial, how it impacts the people around him, and what it reveals about the state of the music industry. Because this story isn't just about one violent night. It's about loyalty, money, power, and how dangerous things get when those forces collide. Now the fallout is blasting through hip-hop like a shockwave. These leaked videos aren't simply part of a court case. They're igniting heavy conversations about loyalty, snitching, street codes, and industry politics. Mills's revelations are shaking multiple layers of the culture at once, from legal strategies to how artists move behind the scenes. On the legal side, these leaks dropped right when Melly's team was gearing up for the retrial, and that timing is too sharp to ignore. Lawyers are saying the footage might not even make it into the courtroom because of issues with authentication and hearsay, but the real problem is the public. Millions of people have already watched the clips, meaning jury selection just became a huge challenge. People walking into that courtroom will already have strong opinions, and that changes everything. How do you pull together 12 totally neutral jurors when half the internet has already watched Mills lay out what he thinks went down that night? Defense lawyers are absolutely going to push to block this footage and might even ask to move the whole trial to a different county because trying to find a fair jury after a leak this huge is near impossible. But here's where things get real strategic. Some people think these leaks might be tied to the civil wrongful death lawsuits, where the families are seeking money damages, and in civil court the rules hit different. Hearsay is easier to use, and the standard of proof is much lower than in criminal court. So if these tapes can't be used to convict anyone, they might still influence the civil side in a major way. The fact that Fredo Bang got pulled into depositions for the civil case shows how wide this situation is stretching. Bang wasn't directly involved in the events of that night, but because Mills said Melly went to his house afterward, now he's part of the legal mess too. Even major figures like 50 Cent have reacted to all of this, showing how the entire hip-hop world is watching it unfold. Now let's jump into the street politics angle, because this part gets extremely layered. The leaked audio of Sack Chaser's family talking the day after the murders reveals they knew a lot about the tension inside YNW. They were discussing money beefs, and even claimed Sack Chaser was trying to stop Melly from signing what they called a devil's deal. That detail has fans debating non-stop. This lines up with something whispered in the streets for years. The idea that this whole situation was about power and money, not random violence or gang business. When record deals worth hundreds of thousands of dollars are on the table and one person thinks they should get half while the other says no, that kind of argument can turn dangerous fast. The family audio also brings up suspicions about Melly's mother and what she did afterward, including claims that a storage unit was rented the next morning to move belongings and possibly hide items connected to what happened. That part had the internet going wild. And the fact that she reportedly called out of work at 5:30 a.m. the same day suggests she might have known something serious went down before any news broke. Now about the NBA YoungBoy part Mills mentioned, that's where the story stretches into a whole different lane. Mills wondered how YoungBoy seemed to know details about the murders, pointing to social media posts and a rumored remix he claimed had insider info. Even though no one has found any proof that remix exists, there were reports that their crews had previous street tensions. When two circles have history like that, even small sparks can turn into something intense. All of this shows just how tangled the situation became. Legal issues, music business pressure, family concerns, and street politics all crashing into each other at once. The fact that YoungBoy's name even pops up in this situation shows just how tightly connected the hip-hop world really is. Beef, alliances, and street politics don't ever sit alone. They overlap, twist together, and pull multiple crews into the same storm when things go sideways. One mention turns into a whole conversation, and suddenly everybody is analyzing who knew who moved where, and why. Now let's hit the biggest question floating around: the snitching claims aimed at Mills. Throughout the interrogation, he keeps saying he's not a snitch and that he's only trying to help his friends. But social media hasn't been gentle at all. People all over the internet are calling him out for talking to law enforcement, and the reaction has been intense. This taps into one of the deepest tensions in hip-hop and street culture. What do you do when the no snitching code clashes with trying to get justice for friends who lost their lives? Mills was stuck in a situation where neither choice was safe. If he stayed silent, the people responsible might walk free. If he talked, he'd get labeled a snitch and become a target. And when he told investigators he feared his family could be hurt because of him cooperating, it showed how serious the stakes were. In the streets, being labeled isn't just about court, it's about survival. This entire case exposes some heavy truths about how the music industry overlaps with street life. The money disagreements that reportedly helped spark this situation are part of a bigger pattern. Success can flip friendships. Pressure can tear families apart. And jealousy can form inside a crew faster than anyone expects. When everybody is hungry and a major contract hits the table, loyalty gets tested in real time. People have been arguing for years about how law enforcement treats young black artists, and this case reignites that debate. Some folks say the authorities unfairly target rising rappers, while others insist the forensic evidence here is too strong to ignore. And the fact that Melly has been locked up for over 6 years without a conviction has people questioning whether the legal system is moving fairly, while supporters of the prosecution say the seriousness of the accusations demands a long, careful process. Now, with the retrial set for January 2027, the whole landscape around this case feels completely different. Florida is still pushing for the harshest sentence possible. And experts say there's almost no chance Melly gets any plea deal that doesn't end in life behind bars. With Bortland taking a plea and potentially being in a position to testify, plus Mills's detailed statements spreading everywhere online, Melly's defense team is under massive pressure. But beyond all the legal moves, attention, and rumors, this situation reminds everyone of the human cost behind the headlines. Mills talked about Juvie as someone who wanted to step away from the rap lifestyle, someone who didn't want the chaos that came with fame and street politics. His description of the group's complicated relationships shows how emotions, loyalty, fear, and ambition were all mixing together long before that tragic night ever happened. And that's what makes this case so heavy. It isn't just about charges and evidence. It's about lives, choices, and the dangerous mix of loyalty and power that shaped everything leading up to that moment. Mills's story paints a haunting picture of young men whose futures were cut short, allegedly by someone they trusted, and that reality still shakes people every time this case gets mentioned. The way these leaks went viral also brings up some heavy questions about the digital world we live in. Should interrogation footage really be treated like content for people to debate and react to? And how do you balance the public's hunger for information with a defendant's right to a fair trial? These questions hit way beyond this one situation. As everyone waits for the retrial to start, one thing is locked in. These leaked tapes made sure the YNW Melly case will stay one of the most closely watched legal battles in hip-hop history. The truth about what happened on October 26, 2018 might be way more complicated than people first thought, but Mills's breakdown gave the world the deepest inside look into that night we've ever heard. Whether this footage ends up helping the prosecution, opening new layers nobody expected, or getting tossed out completely, that's still up in the air. But what's already clear is that this case exposed some of the biggest tensions in hip-hop: loyalty, money, violence, trust, and how fast things fall apart when all of those forces smash together at once. The streets are watching, the courts are gearing up, and the culture is still trying to figure out what all of this really means. This story is nowhere near finished, and the shockwaves from these leaks are gonna echo long after the final verdict gets announced. If you rocked with this breakdown, make sure you like the video, hit that subscribe button, and tap the bell so you catch every new drop. Appreciate you for watching. See you in the next one.